I thought it would be neat to look at like the first chapters of manga, so I'm gonna do that. And I'm gonna do first with Fabricant 100, a new shonen jump that came out about 3 weeks ago. I'm going with this piece. I think it's a great first one to go with. It's a good example of how to do a first chapter. So here's a quick look at what it's about. So the boy on the left is Ashibi Yao. He's a 14-year-old boy from the Yao family. The Yao family is a family that essentially after 18, they very slowly age. They age perfectly. They continue to look beautiful. They're considered, perfect human beings. That family is now dead. He's the only one left. The one on the right is the titular Fabricant 100. The Fabricant 100s are essentially these Frankenstein type characters. You put together various human parts to create the perfect human being. Now, the reason that Ashibi is alive is that he strikes a deal with the Fabricant, a single Fabricant, that whoever kills the rest of the Fabricants can get his body after he turns 18, because that's when his aging essentially reaches its prime point, and he can, perfect whatever Fabricant is going to become, take his parts. And that is how you get this intriguing duo at the end of it all. So that's a great premise to go off for one. So that on its own is obviously great. That's a super intriguing dynamic to put together. And another part of it is that it really sets up the rest of the story well. So the goal is obviously to kill all the Fabricants. So you immediately get this weekly series type deal, Every single week, maybe you get a new Fabricant, some sort of intriguing new opponent to deal with. So you already have the weekly serialization part down, but you also have a really good potential for the overarching story to really slowly build itself. I think that's something a lot of stories really struggle with at the start, for manga. They struggle with the pacing, so they don't get all their, answers out from the start. You don't really know what the end goal is. This one sets that up and a great dynamic to go with it. Now, I think something that might hinge on my interest of the series, not necessarily full on, is the way this dynamic builds out. It can obviously go out in two different ways. One, either the two of them, develop some sort of somehow a familiar type bond, maybe an understanding, because obviously this is in part a Frankenstein story, and Frankenstein's monster was, a misunderstood creature, so maybe that's part of it. And the other deal, one that I prefer, is the antagonistic one where over the years you see him slowly try to build up a plan. Because here's the thing, every single Fabricant, the higher the number you get, the better the Fabricant is, and Fabricant 100 is the best one of them. So I'd really love to see this antagonistic relationship where he's eventually trying to figure out how to kill her. But I'm not saying that's how it has to go. I think one or the other is an interesting direction to go with, so long as it's done well. And you check it out if you're intrigued.